July 28, 1999. It was Wednesday. In Detroit, the Lions were gearing up for training camp at Saginaw Valley State. The fans were doing what they always did in late July, talking themselves into a playoff run. Why wouldn't they? They had a circus on the silver turf years before the Rams ever claimed the name. They had number 20. But while the coaches were whistling and the players were taping their ankles, a fax machine hummed to life in the offices of the Wichita Eagle in Kansas. It was a single page, simple, minimalist, just like the man who sent it. It read, "The reason I am retiring is simple. My desire to exit the game is greater than my desire to remain in it." In that moment, the NFL didn't just lose a player, it lost its magic. Barry Sanders was 31 years old. He was healthy. He was 1,457 yards away from passing Walter Payton to become the all-time rushing leader. He was quite literally one Barry season away from immortality. And then he just walked away. Today, we go back. Not just to the stats, but to the heartbreak. We're looking at the moment the greatest runner to ever lace up a pair of cleats decided that the game wasn't worth the soul of the man playing it. This is the day Barry Sanders broke the NFL's heart. To understand the man who walked away in '99, you have to understand the monster he was in '88. Most of you remember Barry as a Lion, but the foundation of the legend was built in Stillwater, Oklahoma. For 2 years, Barry sat behind Thurman Thomas. Think about that for a second. The greatest runner in history was a backup. But when Thurman left for the Bills, the cage doors opened. What followed in 1988 remains the most statistically impossible season in the history of the sport. In just 11 games, Barry Sanders rushed for 2,628 yards. He scored 37 rushing touchdowns. If you include the Holiday Bowl against Wyoming, where he put up 222 yards and 5 scores in just 3 quarters, making his total rushing yards 2,850. He averaged over 230 yards per game. This is where the Barry character was formed. When he won the Heisman, he wasn't in New York. He was in Tokyo with his teammates preparing for a game. He didn't want the spotlight then, and he wouldn't want it 11 years later. He was a pure football machine who viewed the hype as a distraction. The 1989 NFL Draft is arguably the most top-heavy in history. Troy Aikman went number 1 to Dallas. Then came the mistake that still haunts the frozen tundra. The Green Bay Packers, picking at number 2, chose Tony Mandarich, the incredible bulk. Lions head coach Wayne Fontes didn't make that mistake. He saw the tape. He saw the 21 reps of 225 pounds from a 5'8" kid. He knew. Barry didn't even attend training camp his rookie year due to a contract holdout. He walked into the Silverdome for Week 1 against the Cardinals, having never taken a preseason snap. He took his first carry for 18 yards. By the end of the day, he had 71 yards and a touchdown. The NFL was terrified. Defensive coordinators, who had spent decades perfecting gap discipline, suddenly realized that gaps didn't matter when a human being could jump sideways 4 yards in a single heartbeat. Let's get technical. Why was Barry impossible to tackle? It wasn't just speed, it was the low man principle. Barry ran with his chest nearly parallel to the turf. His thighs were like tree trunks, giving him a base that was virtually untoppable. When a linebacker like Mike Singletary or Junior Seau would square him up, Barry wouldn't just move, he would disappear. He had the unique ability to accelerate while in a cut. Most backs have to slow down to change direction. Barry seemed to gain speed. He forced defenders to over-pursue, and the moment they shifted their weight to their heels, he was gone. Patriots defensive back Harlan Barnett once said, "I reached out to grab him and I caught a handful of air. I looked back and he was 20 yards downfield." If there was a moment where we all thought the Lions were going to become a dynasty, it was January of 1992. The Silverdome was the loudest building in the world. 12-4 record, Eric Kramer was dealing. But the exclamation point was Barry. That 47-yard touchdown run where he left Bill Bates and Ray Horton clutching at shadows. That was the peak. The Lions crushed the Cowboys 38-6. It was the first playoff win for Detroit since 1957. The heartbreak of '99 started here because we saw what was possible. We saw a world where Barry Sanders hoisted a Lombardi trophy. We didn't know that 41-10 loss to the Redskins in the NFC Championship the following week would be the closest he'd ever get. We have to address the elephant in the room. The 90s were a tug of war between Detroit and Dallas. Emmitt Smith had the rings. He had the Great Wall of Dallas offensive line, Larry Allen, Nate Newton, Mark Tuinei. He was the hammer in a dynasty. But Barry was the entire team. Let's look at the data because the old heads know the truth. From 1990 to 1997, these two battled for the rushing title every year. Barry took it in 90, 94, 96, and 97. Emmitt took it in 91, 92, 93, and 95. But here is the stat that still boggles the mind. Barry Sanders is the only player in NFL history to record 5 1,500-yard rushing seasons. He did it in 4 consecutive years. In 1994, Barry rushed for 1,883 yards. His quarterback was Scott Mitchell. His offensive line featured guys like Lomas Brown and Kevin Glover. Great players, but they weren't the Great Wall. Here is the stat that defines the difference. Barry Sanders holds the NFL record for the most career rushing yards lost. Over 1,114 yards backward. Think about that. He lost over half a mile of yardage because he was constantly hit in the backfield, yet he still finished with over 15,000 yards. If Barry had played in Dallas, we aren't talking about 18,000 yards. We are talking about 22,000. If you want to know why the retirement felt like a betrayal of destiny, look at 1997. After 2 weeks, Barry had 53 total yards. The critics said he was 29. He was slowing down. The tires were bald. Then the greatest 14-game stretch in the history of the position happened. 14 consecutive games of 100 yards or more. Heading into the final game against the Jets, he needed 131 yards for 2,000. He didn't just get it. He exploded for 184. He became only the third man to do it, joining O.J. Simpson and Eric Dickerson. He shared the MVP with Brett Favre. He was the undisputed king of football. And yet, in the locker room after the game, Barry wasn't celebrating the record. He was talking about the upcoming playoff game against Tampa Bay, a game they would lose 20-10. But beneath the highlights, a tragedy was brewing. That was the beginning of the end. Barry was a winner, but the Lions weren't. Despite 5 playoff appearances in the 90s, the Lions only won a single postseason game. By 1998, the cracks were showing. Not in Barry's legs, but in his spirit. The Lions front office was letting talent walk out the door. All-Pro tackle Lomas Brown was gone. Pro Bowl linebacker Chris Spielman was gone. Kevin Glover was gone. Barry saw the writing on the wall. He was being asked to carry a rebuilding franchise at age 30. The 1998 season was down by Barry's standards. He only rushed for 1,491 yards. Think about that. Nearly 1,500 yards was a bad year for him. But for the first time, he wasn't celebrating after touchdowns. He was just handing the ball to the ref and walking back to the huddle. Watch the tape of the 1998 finale against the Ravens. Barry had 25 carries for only 41 yards. He looked human. For the first time in 10 years, the Houdini couldn't find the trapdoor. The joy was gone. When he walked off the field at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, he was walking off for the last time. So, we go back to that July day in 1999. After the fax was sent, it wasn't just a sports story. It was a national mourning. The timing was brutal. Training camp was starting the next day. The Lions had no plan B. They had just signed Barry to a massive contract extension the year before. They even sued him to get $5.5 million of his signing bonus back. The fans were divided. Some called him a quitter. They compared him to Jim Brown, another legend who walked away at 29, but most fans felt a profound sense of loss. We weren't ready to say goodbye. We wanted the record. We wanted to see him pass Walter Payton. We wanted to see him in a Super Bowl, but Barry didn't owe us the record. He owed himself his health. While Detroit was burning, Barry was in London. He was walking the streets where no one knew who he was. No one asked him for an autograph. No one asked him why the Lions couldn't find a quarterback. He later admitted that the losing had worn him down. He saw great teammates like Lomas Brown and Chris Spielman leave for better organizations. He realized the Lions weren't building a winner. They were building a Barry Sanders highlight reel. And he refused to be the only reason people bought tickets to a losing show. He wanted anonymity. He wanted to be a man, not a stat. Let's talk about the what if. If Barry Sanders had played just 2 more seasons, just 2 at his career average, he wouldn't just have broken Walter Payton's record. He would have pushed it so far into the stratosphere that not even Emmitt Smith could have reached it. We are talking about 19,000, maybe 20,000 career yards. It's worth noting that Emmitt Smith finished with 18,355, and Barry only needed about 3,100 more yards to hit 18,400, which he would have done in 2.5 seasons, but that wasn't Barry. In an era of look-at-me celebrations, the day on prime time shuffle, the dirty bird, Barry was the man who acted like he'd been there before. He never spiked the ball. He never trash-talked. He broke the NFL's heart because he proved that the game wasn't everything. He proved that you could be the best in the world at something and still choose your own peace over the world's applause. Does the lack of a Super Bowl ring hurt his legacy? For the 25-year-old stat geeks on Twitter, maybe. But for those of us who saw him play, for those who remember the sound of 80,000 people gasping in unison in the Silverdome, the answer is a resounding no. Barry Sanders is the only player to ever reach 15,000 yards in just 10 seasons. He never missed a Pro Bowl. He was All-Pro every single year he played. He didn't just break the NFL's heart by leaving. He broke the mold of what a superstar should be. He taught us that it's okay to walk away when the passion dies, that you don't have to stay until you're limping and broken just to satisfy a record book. The Silverdome is gone now. The turf is ripped up. The Lions have moved on to a new era, but if you close your eyes and listen to the hum of a fax machine or the roar of a crowd on Thanksgiving Day, you can still see him. The low crouch, the blue and silver blur, the handoff to the official after a 60-yard score. Barry Sanders broke our hearts on July 28, 1999, but he gave us 10 years of magic that will never be replicated. He left us wanting more, and maybe that's the greatest compliment you can give an athlete. 27 years after he sent that fax, we still talk about him. Not because of the records he broke, but because of the way he made us feel every time he touched the ball. He was the greatest. He was the humblest. And on July 28, 1999, he was gone. But I want to hear from you. Where were you when you heard Barry Sanders was retiring? Did you feel betrayed? Or did you understand why he walked away? And more importantly, if you could go back to that Tuesday in July of '99, what would you say to Barry before he sent that fax? And the big question, if Barry had played behind the Cowboys' offensive line, how many yards would he have actually had? Drop your memories in the comments. Let's talk some old school football. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the legends of the game. We'll see you in the next one.